No, you're not.
Or I think we need to make a practice to like start doing some background music while we are waiting.
Yes, that would be fun. Also, welcome chords.
Yeah, I was thinking, chords could be chill into some. Here, I'll play something. How's that? Some Bill Evans. Oh, don't even know who Bill Evans is.
I do not, but it sounds beautiful.
Bill Evans probably passed away maybe even before your parents were born. Very famous jazz pianist. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the webinar. We're playing some chill music. Kind of feels like Friday, but it's Wednesday. Maybe that's just me. Corey, did you enable chat last time?
Yes, chat is enabled. Chords already found it.
Oh yeah, great, excellent. So hey, we'd just like to do an icebreaker while we wait for a few others to join. We have this little chatbot, this icebreaker chatbot. I guess now we can turn off the music. So while we wait for a few people, put in the chat, would you like to see a dad joke, a picture of a cat, or see a riddle? Oh yeah, chords. Hey, be careful. It's Hurricane Ian. Looks like no joke. Speaking of jokes. Okay, what concert would cost only 45 cents? 50 cent, featuring Nickelback.
I like that one.
Yeah. All right, someone else. Would you like to see a dad joke, a picture of a cat, or a riddle? Just put in the chat if you have a preference. I'll go ahead with a picture of a cat since no one's. See, Melissa, I read your mind. Here's a random picture of a cat. Oh, now this cat's paw seems disproportional with its face, doesn't it? Like, okay. Looks like a huge paw given how small the cat's face is. Not being judgmental, I'm just sharing my observations. We'll do one more while we wait for a few others. Let's do a riddle. I know this one. I've seen this one before. What has to be broken before you can use it? Anyone venture a guess in the chat? I will tell you. The answer is an egg. All right. Good job. All right. Well, let's get started because now it's 2 after the hour and I'd like to be punctual. So thanks for participating with that icebreaker. So welcome to the webinar, How to Use Chatbots for Learning Nudges. This is being recorded. And so Corey, who's my colleague supporting me on this webinar, will be sending out the link to all those of you who are registered. So whether you're watching live or watching the recording later, welcome. Corey will also be looking at the chat and the Q&A. And there are some links that we're going to share that she'll be putting in the chat as well for you to try out. So we're also going to be doing an exercise. So hopefully you won't be bashful about writing some learning nudges. We'll do that towards the end of the webinar today. And she'll also send you a copy of what everyone's written. I think that'll be a nice piece of work product for all of us to benefit from as a side benefit from the webinar today. So let's get started. If we haven't connected, I would love to connect with you. I have a little QR code there for my LinkedIn. I'm actually just Vince Hahn, one word, on LinkedIn that you can find me. And there's my email address as well. So I hope to connect with all of you. Today's agenda, we're going to just go through a brief chatbot example. And then there'll be some examples for learning nudges. That's really the bulk of the content today. We'll show you oftentimes when we start thinking about the types of messages that we want to send to our learner population, you want to know, well, okay, how do I build this? How does that work? And so we'll show you an example of how to build these messages and all the logic behind them using the Mobile Coach platform today. And then there'll be a Q&A and a webinar offer. So let's dig in. So if you're on your phone or have your phone, you can use these QR codes. We have the same chatbot for you to try out either through a web widget, which is on the left, or through Microsoft Teams, which is on the right. You can try this on your desktop. You can also copy and paste or click on the links that Corey's putting in the chat. So this is just a simple example, and I like to just start with interacting with a chatbot. Sort of sets the conversation that we'll have today about how chatbots work. So give that a try. I think what I'll do is do it on a web widget. Show that just so that those of you that are not able to or not in a position to do so can at least see it in action. So here's the web widget. Hi there, congrats on completing a new hire orientation. So this is a use case that imagine that you're a new hire and you've been through orientation, and this chatbot named Sally is going to help you apply what you've learned. So I'm going to give Sally my name. Sally sets some expectations, gives me some menu options. Hopefully you get the idea. What do you notice about this type of user experience? Hopefully some of you are trying this, all of you are trying it out. What are some immediate things that you notice? Why would this modality, this chatbot modality, have some value? We'd love to just see some of your responses in the chat. What do you notice about this type of user experience? So Cord says, accessible to learner when they want. That is absolutely nailing it on the head. Seamless and fast, so instantaneous, people, especially in today's day and age, we want like instant responses, instant answers. Chatbot's automated and it's not human, so it's just going to be always available. And I like how Melissa pointed out common information. So where chatbots really excel well is in FAQs and things that are very repetitive and very predictable for the organization, but maybe not for someone that's new. I love Lisa's comment too. She says if something suddenly comes up, you can do it and they get right back to the chatbot. So you can interact at your own pace. What's happening? There's not like a pressure of being in a group dynamic. You can be completely self-paced in the work that you're doing, and there's a great convenience to that. So those are all great responses, and Cord also says familiar format for sure. Yeah, Melissa notices that at least in this demo, we asked people to set preferences like the time and day that they would like to receive information. And so yes, you can totally personalize the experience and meet people where they are. So great responses. You all get your Chatbot 101 degree. So let's just go back. We'll very quickly go through some basics and we'll dig into the bulk of today's topic about learning nudges. But a chatbot is simply, it's a computer program designed to simulate conversation. And many of us have had these experiences as customers going to like your bank's website or maybe your insurance company or credit card. You go to the site and a little chat window pops open and you can choose to interact with it. And the other type of chatbot, so actually let's think about that for a second. So let's say you go to your bank's website and the chat window pops open. Maybe you have an occasion to interact with it, maybe you don't, so sometimes you might ignore it. But once you leave that website, once you leave that bank's website, there's no way for that chatbot to interact with you anymore. So that's one disadvantage of a web-based chatbot. Now you can have a chatbot on, like, for example, I put for that demo an option on Microsoft Teams. And if you interact, by the way, just if you could raise your hand in the chat if you use the Teams version. I'm just curious if any of you have Teams, and if you chose that as a modality. But if you have something like Teams or another messaging channel, like if you just think about what's on your phone, SMS, WhatsApp, some people use Slack. So channels like that, you are connected with the chatbot. So you don't really leave it like you leave the web page. And so that what that enables you to do if you're the chatbot designer is to program things like, hey, I'm going to send you reminders. What day would you like a reminder? And that's a really powerful concept on how to build a chatbot to engage learners. And in fact, the whole premise of today's webinar is nudges. There's no way to nudge someone unless you can reach them. And so that's why chatbots are such a great way to deliver a nudge. So why chatbots for learners? Well, we've already hit on some of these comments in the chat. It's easy and accessible. The chatbot can live where your people already are. So if you're using Teams, people don't have to go download something new. You don't have to create another username and password. I mean, do all of you have the same feeling I have when I access a brand new software and I have to like come up with another password? And I know people tell me never use the same password for the same thing. I try to do that, but that just means I've got 250 passwords. It can be overwhelming. And so with a chatbot that's on Microsoft Teams or on SMS or just on a common platform where I already am, it's just super easy. I don't have to create another username or password or have that point of friction. And also it's much more engaging. So compare these type of situations or this type of modality to email. So if I'm sending someone a nudge on Teams via chatbot, it's just going to be a lot more engaging than through email or even a push notification on an app. And then it's easy to deploy and manage. So it is work to deploy a chatbot, but comparing that to building a website and maintaining that website, boy, it's just a lot easier. So one more slide sort of on chatbot basics, and then I'd like to pause for questions or comments that you might have. And by the way, put questions in the chat or in the Q&A if you have them. So we already hit a little bit on this, but the word chatbot's pretty all-encompassing. And so it's helpful for me to think that where do chatbots live? So on the left-hand side here, public websites like the bank example I mentioned. On the right-hand side, common mobile messaging platforms like SMS that I mentioned. And in the middle, some web desktop type of portal like Microsoft Teams that I mentioned. And depending on where your chatbot is, really impacts quite significantly how you would design the user experience. And we'll talk a little bit about that as we get into designing the chatbot messages for nudges. So hopefully that makes sense. And to me, that's really helpful just to understand chatbots, automated conversations. You can have a chatbot live wherever people are messaging. And based on where they're messaging, I can be connected with them or not. And based on the modality of where they are, that really will drive the type of chatbot design that I can have. So let me pause here. Any questions? Make sure you can put them in the chat if you do. Otherwise, we'll just move forward. Okay. I'll keep an eye on the chat. Why this is compelling for organizations. We already hit on the fact that it's easier for people and that it's already where people are. The term I like to use for that is frictionless. So that's a huge value. It's a one-stop shop. Someone alluded to this too. Just wherever it can be this your main entry to the things that you need as a learner. Sometimes, just like if you go to your bank's website and there's a chatbot, there'll be an option to talk to a live agent. And there are cases where we need to do that, and that is a better experience. So this conversational user interface, UI is an acronym for user interface. So this conversational user interface enables for seamless human intervention. So you can have the chatbot hand off to a subject matter expert or to a learning support or an HR partner or something like that. So it's a really easy and a wonderfully, a very friendly user experience for that. And then the type of data that you get from this type of user experience is also really valuable. So if any of you have built a website or managed a website, you know, you get some analytics with the website, like who's visiting my website, how long are they staying there, what are they clicking on, and that helps you know like what's working on your website. There's similar statistics for chatbots. You know, if chatbot's asking a question, how long does it take for people to answer? How many people are answering the questions? What are their answers? You know, what time of day seems to be the best time of day to interact with people? So boy, this type of highly engaged user experience gives you some great analytics to help you understand your audience a little bit better. So those are just some of the reasons why chatbots are so compelling. Now, learning nudges. If you think about the term nudge, that implies that someone needs to be reminded of something. And many of you will have heard of something called the forgetting curve. And the forgetting curve is, let's say that you go to a class, you have some sort of formal learning experience, and over time, we're going to just forget some of the things that that we've learned. So I was actually in a meeting right before this where we were talking about someone going into a webinar, and the presenter had 60 slides. And yeah, during the webinar, I have to be careful. I don't think I have 60 slides today. But people are nodding their head and they understand it in real time. They understand the material. But if you just think about, okay, well, 3 hours later or 24 hours later or 7 days later, how much has been retained? And that's the idea of the forgetting curve. We can't remember everything that we get into our brain. And so there's there's the retention path. And this is the type of retention path that's ideal, where yes, there's a forgetting curve, but there's some intervention that causes you to remember and maybe even apply and then really take advantage of the content that you've learned. And of course, you're going to forget again. And then you need some sort of intervention again. So this is sort of the retention path that we would like to see when we're architecting learning experiences. And so the question is, well, how do we reach the people to intervene? How do we get people to that intervention point? And there's been lots of things tried in the past. Like those of us that have been in L&D for years and years, and I started in the year 2000, used to be a booklet. You know, you go to a course, you get a booklet, and then you write a little schedule, and then in your daily planner, you would maybe be encouraged to write reminders to yourself. Remember those days? Raise your hand if you remember those days. Of course, for years, we've tried email with mixed results. And I think that's being maybe overly fair. Email would get buried in our inbox. And then, you know, we have some organizations have tried smartphone apps or even desktop applications, but that requires people to log in. So, you know, we've been looking for a way to be more effective in these inflection points where we can have an effective intervention. And so I think that a chatbot where I'm connected to the chatbot through Teams, through Slack, through SMS is really an ideal delivery for a nudge, which is why we're here today. So hopefully that makes sense. So I'd like to do a quick poll. There's, again, the principle with the chatbot is, let me launch the poll and then I can talk. I can't multitask anymore like I used to. So the principle of the chatbot is put the chatbot where people already are. And there's a lot of different options for that. So in this poll, the question is, what channel would be best for your learners? SMS, Microsoft Teams, Slack, WebEx Teams, Google Chat, or maybe something else? So if everyone has a chance to answer that, I'll give everyone just another minute. And then I will publish the results of the poll. We'll see. Really interesting so far. Okay, okay, all 13, great. Okay, I'm gonna end the poll and I think I can share the results. Give me a thumbs up in the chat if you can see the results. Just need one of you to do that, or Corey, if you want to give me a thumbs up.
We've got a lot of thumbs up coming.
Oh, how come I'm not seeing that in the chat? Weird.
It's not in the chat. They're on the screen.
Oh, okay. Well, I think since I'm sharing my screen, I can't see the floating thumbs up. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Thanks, Kim.
So this is, I've done this poll many times, and usually Microsoft Teams always wins. And so to me, it's really interesting that SMS won today. Maybe some of you are thinking about frontline workers today. But yes, it's particularly in North America, SMS is the most engaging. In fact, maybe some of you know or don't know that the carriers, the phone companies, report that 98% of SMS messages are read, and 90% of those messages are read within the first 3 minutes. So SMS is an incredibly powerful channel. So thank you for that. Samantha asks in the Q&A, can you use a personal phone for training? Absolutely. Well, technically, absolutely. And I think it's an incredible modality for training, especially performance support, where people are using their phone themselves to get resources to help them be successful. The big caveat is, will your organization allow you to have people use their personal phones for training? And I recently did a poll on LinkedIn on this, and I was surprised. More people than I thought said that yes, their organizations are now allowing people to use personal phone for work-related stuff, but that's going to be different from company to company. So thanks for the question, Samantha. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through some best practices on how to write a nudge, and then we'll actually do that together. So the first best practice is to consider the timing and frequency of nudges. And in all of these examples, there's going to be like boundaries, 2 choices and everything in between. So here the principle is you decide when the timing and the frequency is, or you let the user decide. And the way to think in the bucket of you decide, you're almost like a TV producer, where you're creating the storyboard, you're creating the story. And so like if I'm watching a TV show, I can't tell the producers what should come on episode 3 of the season. I'm going to have to tune in to find out, right? So, and then whether I like the episode or not, that's the bet that the TV producers and the writers are making. They're trying to create something where they think enough people will like it. And so there are use cases where in the learning journey you're designing, it will be appropriate for you to decide and dictate the timing and the frequency of the nudges. And so you can see that this example on the left-hand side of the message, Happy Friday, a friendly reminder to review your goals for the week. That's something that the chatbot designer or the instructional designer behind this program has decided this is the right timing for this nudge. On the other hand, and you saw this in the demo earlier, and where you can have the user decide. So, hi there, when would you like me to send you a reminder next week? And so then the user can say, oh, well, let's see, how about Wednesday? And the chatbot can be smart enough to then understand that response and send the message on Wednesday. So there are pros and cons to both of these, and you just have to decide what works best for your learning program and what you're trying to accomplish and for your audience. One of the advantages of the right-hand side of letting the user decide, and you can actually let them decide what day of the week they want and what time of day that they want, is that then they are giving you more permission to send this proactive message. And so then when they receive it, they're expecting it and it won't feel invasive or it won't feel like spam. And that's one thing you do have to be careful of on the left-hand side. I mentioned how wonderful SMS is in terms of engagement. Like with the statistic I mentioned, 90% of text messages are read within the first 3 minutes. But again, how many of you like me are starting to get more and more SMS messages from sources I don't know, that they're spam, they're unwanted marketing messages, sometimes they're phishing attempts. And so it's right now, so far I can tell who are my friends and colleagues and family, and so I can read those messages and ignore the others. For a work-related message, you're not quite a friend or a family, but you are important to the user, and so you have to walk that line of yes, I'm going to proactively send you a reminder and message. And so you want to write it in a way that feels valuable and doesn't feel spammy. We'll talk a little bit about that as well as we go on. So that's consideration number one. Are you going to decide when the nudge is being sent, or are you going to let the user decide? Okay. Best practice number two, the smarter the nudge, the more valuable it will feel. And so here, there's again, the two boundaries. On the left-hand side, lots of personalization. And on the right-hand side, something very generic. So let's actually read these two examples, and then we can talk about them. On the left, hi there, you said you'd have a conversation with your manager this week about how you're progressing with active listening. Did you do it? Yes or no? That's very specific. It's citing something that I have said I would do, having as a very specific task. I'm going to have a conversation with my manager about a very specific topic. So it's a highly personalized message. Versus on the right-hand side, hi there, here's a great supplementary article about the virtues of active listening. This is a message that could be sent to a whole cohort at the same time, and maybe the whole cohort had the same training. So it's not personalized, it's going to a group, and it applies to everybody in that group. So again, when I'm receiving that message, what am I going to pay more attention to? What's going to feel more valuable to me? In principle, the generic reminders in a lot of cases do great. They can be fabulous. But the more deep that you're trying to go, the more influence you're trying to have in someone's personal learning journey, the more personalization is going to just feel more valuable. It will be harder. Like the design process requires more rigor because you're having to create the automation to be a lot smarter. And so you have to juggle, is the work for the rigor to pull off personalization worth it versus just creating something generic for everybody. A lot of times I suggest people start on the right because it's a lot easier to pull off. You start learning a bunch of stuff, you start getting qualitative and quantitative feedback on how people are interacting with the chatbot, and then you can ease into some of the personalization just because the rigor is it can be significant if you're really wanting the chatbot to be super smart. So that's number two. The smarter the nudge, the more valuable it will feel. Okay, number three, there's 4 of these, so we're getting there. Number 3, determine the tone and personality of the chatbot. So the 2 guardrails here on the left, drill instructor, cracking the whip. On the right-hand side, having the chatbot be very soft and deferential. So example here on the left, accountability time, did you do what you said you'd do? Yes or no? Or on the right-hand side, you can see that just something a little bit softer, not requiring a response. And again, there's no right or wrong on these. It depends on your context. It depends on your culture. It depends on the goal of the chatbot, the goal of the learning program that chatbot is supporting. It depends on the demographic of your target audience. And so it depends on culture. All of these examples are in English, but many of us are in organizations where there are multiple languages spoken. And so, determining the tone and personality of the chatbot, this is a best practice that I bring up that oftentimes can be, maybe overlooked, but it should be a deliberate part of your chatbot design and in designing the nudges. Okay, the last best practice I want to share is find ways to measure how effective your nudge is. And here, there are quantitative ways to measure and there are qualitative ways to measure. So an example here, hi there, how effective have my reminders been on a scale of 1 to 10? That could be a way to measure qualitative feedback. You get your average response, so you can see how it does. Quantitatively, there are things you can track, like if there's a learning program where people need to accomplish, so for example, use cases that this will come up in a writing exercise, but let's say new hires, let's say in your organization, a new hire has to complete a handful of compliance courses within their first 30 days. And that's a rule. And so as an organization, you can see, all right, well, we have 85% of our new hires are doing that. That's actually a really good number, but let's just stick with that. And then you deploy a chatbot to nudge new hires. So after 30 days, maybe that number goes from 85 to 95%. That's a quantitative way to say, oh, hey, our nudges are really working. So both quantitative and qualitative are really important. One nice thing about chatbots, so there's many nice things about chatbots, but one really powerful and nice benefit is that it's a lot easier to A/B test with a chatbot than traditional software. When I mentioned this, some people ask, I take for granted that people have done a lot of A/B testing. It's more of a marketing term, but an A/B test is like doing two examples. Imagine going to the eye doctor and the eye doctor is showing you two different lenses, like what's better, A or B? What looks better, C or D? That's like A/B testing. So you can, if I scroll back to one of these messages, you can try sending half of your users the drill instructor message and the other half the deferential message, and then ask all users, hey, how effective was this message, and compare the results to the two. That's what I mean by A/B testing. And with chatbots, A/B testing is really easy. If you're building a website and you want to build two websites to see which one's better, that's really hard. But to experiment with chatbots a lot easier. So very quickly, you can build a list of best practices of the tone that works best for your team, the time of day and frequency that seems to resonate most with your audience. You can build this list of best practices that will make your chatbots even more effective. Okay, so those are 4 things to think about when you're writing a nudge. Now I want to let's just start writing some nudges and see what we can learn from that. So what we have in the poll, I have a poll, and here's how the poll is going to work. There are 2 prompts, and this is a safe area, so no judging. We're just going to do this to help each other. There are 2 prompts. You read the first prompt and then craft an example of the message, and if you need some help, take inspiration for some of these messages that you see on the screen, and then there'll be a second prompt, which is a different scenario, and you write your messages there. So everyone give that a try, and then we'll actually share what people wrote, and let's see how, I think we'll learn things, because I think some of these prompts, there's no right or wrong, and so we'll see something about your culture and your demographic and how you write your messages. And so I'm really interested to see what you do. And so please participate. We'll give this, give 2 or 3 minutes to do this. The first prompt is that new hire example I mentioned. A new hire is required to complete 5 compliance courses within their first 30 days. Write a reminder for them. And there's no right or wrong. So maybe the chatbot's smart and can keep track of how many courses of the 5 they've done, or maybe they don't. So you choose how smart your chatbot is. So please give this a try. And if people have questions, put them in the chat if you've got a question or need some clarification. And while you do this, yep, Charlotte says she loves the idea of A/B testing. I do too. Melissa says, I can see how this would be a helpful tool for leaders to get feedback. Yeah, chatbots are a great way. It's a great survey tool. All right, in my poll dashboard, I guess it'll only show me when people are done. So I'm just assuming some of you are trying this out. Corey, are you trying this too?
I have no way to answer.
Oh, because you're a
unfortunately, yes.
You're a host. I see that. Charlotte says she's done.
Thank you, Charlotte. Anyone struggling who wants help? We can also use this time for a little brainstorming if anyone needs help.
They do require concentration. I will be quiet. We promise we will not steal your wonderful ideas either. This isn't some ploy to get some free writing. Although now that I think about that, that's not a bad idea. All right, we have one person done. How about we give everybody another 2 minutes? You don't have to do this if you're rather not, don't feel intimidated or don't feel like you have to leave because you're not doing it. Notice how I said I'll stop talking and I don't stop talking. And then Lisa says it's hard to focus with the talking. One more minute. And a lot of the speaking coaching I've received, so many coaches have told me, don't be afraid of the silence. It's really easier said than done. Okay, I'm gonna 30 seconds and then we're gonna see what people have written. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna end the poll. Sorry for those of you if you're still working on it, just because of time, we'll end the poll. And then share results. And I think I can share my screen this way. Like this, so you don't have to like click on the link yourself. Yeah, great suggestion, Melissa. We did play music at the beginning. We were playing some Bill Evans jazz music, so I should have done that before. Okay, let's read some of these. Maybe I'll blow this up because of my age. I need fonts to be a little bit larger. So the first prompt, a new hire is required to complete 5 compliance courses. I'll let everybody read what people wrote. And please put in the chat any bravos, any comments. Oh, I love the call to action suggestions on the first two. If you need support, reach out to your supervisor, reply link for a link to your next course. That's great. Oh, very specific, great there. And here's some great motivation. That's wonderful. These are great prompts. Good way to go. Yeah, okay. Let's do the second one. I like this of letting them tell the chatbot how the chatbot could help them. Very specific, enter the date. This is great, awesome. Oh, this is a really direct question. Can you complete this before this date, yes or no? And I can imagine the chatbot telling them follow-up information based on their answer. If they say yes, chatbot says great. If they say no, maybe it says that's okay. When can you finish it? There could be a remediation if they say no. That can be helpful for them. Oh, look at this. That's a great, I love that. Help for sentence starters for goals that you may find relevant. So provide some performance support. Wonderful. This I can tell you, one of the benefits of something like this is so short, you can speed read it, and sometimes just getting people to look at it is enough to be an effective nudge. So I like the brevity of this last one. Well done, everybody. This is really impressive work. I'm just very, very impressed with quality of those nudges. Seems like all of you have done this before. All right, so now I'm going to show you how you would build something like this. I'm looking at the clock, and so I want to keep things moving along. Corey, I can't quite remember where this concierge bot lives. Do you happen to know off the top of your head?
Yes, I'll get you a link.
Thank you. So let me say, while she's getting me the link, there are different ways to build chatbots, and it depends. A lot of it depends on what, if at the beginning of the webinar, we did that poll of SMS, Teams, Slack. If you use Teams, for example, that's Microsoft Azure. And Microsoft does have a little bot builder themselves, and there's a whole handful of bot platforms out there. You know, we're biased, of course. We build chatbots for learning, and so we think that our platform is the most robust and best fit for learning user experiences. But you know, you don't have to use mobile coach. But what I wanted to do, because oftentimes when we're seeing examples, people, they want to know how these are built. So I'm going to show you how a chatbot's built on the mobile coach platform, not in detail because we don't have time for that, but just like, you know, how a picture's worth 1,000 words, just to show you a little bit of how it's authored. And I think that just helps connect some dots in your mind. And so those of you that tried out that initial demo chatbot at the beginning of the webinar, you got this first message. It says, to start off, what is your first name? I gave it the name. Then it says, thanks, Vince. And so this is how this was authored. Now, we have done thousands and thousands of chatbots, and there are different sort of ways to visualize your script. We have just found that a spreadsheet form is most efficient. Some people like a mind mapping visual form, but the problem with that is when your chatbot gets really personalized and you start having lots of if-then connections, then it becomes too overwhelming for something visual. So we have found that spreadsheets are just the most efficient way to build chatbots. And so here in the script column, this is the first message that's sent. And then if you think about, okay, I'm authoring this chatbot. When someone gets this message, what do I want the chatbot to do? I want it to send the next message. And so under the conditions and actions, there's this next rule. So it will trigger the next rule. This next rule was, or this next message, to start off, what is your first name? Now, what do I want the chatbot to do? Well, I want it to wait for an answer. And the question is, how long do I want to wait for an answer? What if the person never answers? And then I want to make sure that the response is like a name, and then save it as the person's first name so I can refer to it. These are some of the things that I wanted to do. So over here in the controls, I set the chatbot to wait until the next schedule rule. So I'll wait. Maybe the user, someone said this early in the chat, you can, if something comes up, you can leave the chatbot, do another task, come back to it. So who am I to know why people aren't answering the question? But you know, after a certain amount of time, I may just want to move on if someone doesn't want to give the chatbot my first name. So I'll schedule a rule to override this. So that's what that is. And then over here, without getting into the technicality of things, you don't need to be a coder to use the mobile coach platform, but we train you on just some of the language parsing aspects of it. So this is just parsing the user's response, setting a field for the first name, and then sending this next script. Thanks. You can see first name is in brackets there, and then that's the next rule. So that just gives you a little bit of an idea. So if I go back to the chatbot, you can see how the automation worked. It sent the first message, then the next message, waited for me to say Vince, and then sent me this message. So hopefully that helps. Then over here, I'll just show you quickly, the calendaring aspect becomes very important for nudges. So I can calendar a message, day of the week, Friday afternoon, for example, 2 o'clock, day of the month. That could be a really important for a nudge. And so on the day of the month, I could choose like second to the last day of the month, something like that. I can choose program day, which is like day 1, day 5, day 15, or I can choose the actual calendar date, like September 28th at 3 p.m. So those are the different ways you can calendar. We also have calendar branches. And so you could ask a user, hey, I can send you a daily reminder or a weekly reminder. You choose. Then I could have a calendar branch that's daily and a calendar branch that's weekly. And so these are some of the ways that you can create that personalization. So that's just really scratching the surface of all the automation that we have in the mobile coach platform. But hopefully this visual just gives you an idea of how, some of those messages that you wrote as part of the writing exercise, you would put into here, and then schedule when it would get sent off. Now, some of your messages implied that some data was coming from another system. So for example, hi, Vince, you finished 3 of the 5 compliance courses. Well, how would the chatbot know that? Well, hopefully your LMS knows that. And so we have an API connections tab here where you can connect with third-party systems and have the chatbot fetch data so it can know that type of information. So with an API, you can connect with LMSs, LRSs, HRIS systems, CRMs, lots of other third-party systems. So that hopefully gives you a little bit of idea of how you would build something like this. And so the process is just like you did, right? You wrote your own script. The way I write chatbot scripts, I quite frankly use Microsoft Word or Google Docs, just some blank piece of paper. So I don't start with all the complicated configuration because I'm really, I tell people all the time when they ask me, what's the #1 factor in having a chatbot be effective or not? It's not the technology, it's the script. It's because that's what people are reading. So I like just a blank slate of paper and really think about my audience, think about the tone, the personality, trying to make messages brief, but substantive. These types of design questions is what I think the bulk of the work. So I write my script and then I configure that script logic, and I'll do that in Mobile Coach. And then I always test everything. We have a testing tool within the Mobile Coach platform because there could be typos and there could be little logic errors, and so I like to test the script before I launch it and then fix it where appropriate. And then we talked a little bit about A/B testing earlier, but once you launch, then you can launch and monitor and get feedback and see how people are doing. So it's like a simple 4-step process to create your chatbot. So then if, for example, I put this slide in here anticipating that most of you would choose Teams, but most of you chose SMS. For SMS, in the Mobile Coach platform, you can actually procure a legal phone number, register your campaign with all the carriers. We do that for you. And then people can just start interacting with that phone number. If you wanted to plug in your chatbot through Teams, you log into your organization's Azure environment, and there's a way to register an application. You can see a screenshot of how that works here, or how that looks here. And the same thing applies to like Slack and Google Chat, and they all have ways to plug in a chatbot so that your people can interact with it. So hopefully that's been valuable to you. I think I've hoped to have turned on some light bulbs of the power of a nudge, and delivering it via chatbot where you're going to be able to get that nudge in front of your audience. I think it's just a really powerful modality to help people keep on track with the goals that they're pursuing. So that's the webinar content. Any questions that people have? I'm looking at the Q&A or the chat. I'll take some questions. And again, for those of you that have signed up via for the webinar, you'll get a link to the recording, so you can review all this stuff too. Any questions about what we've talked about? Chatbots, authoring, nudges. All right, there's a couple in the Q&A. Let's see. Oh, Charlotte, she asks, how do you interface with other learning systems, the LMS? Yeah, so I mentioned our API connection where you can do both a push and a pull with your LMS. Now, I will say that some LMSs are not API friendly, unfortunately. And when LMSs are not API friendly, almost always they give you the ability to export data in a CSV format. And the Mobile Coach platform allows you to import CSVs as well. So worst comes to worst, you can import a data file from your LMS, once a week, once a day, and then update your chatbot logic that way. Any other questions? If any of you, by the way, would like a sandbox account or like to play around with the Mobile Coach platform, just let us know. We'd be happy to facilitate that for you. Anonymous says, could we contact you later with new questions? Yes, email me at vince@mobilecoach.com. I'd be happy to answer any questions that people have. And we can also provide help in writing your script. We provide writing services, design services, and configuration and setup services. So question. All right, if anyone has other follow-up questions, just send us an email. Send me an email, vince@mobilecoach.com. Oh, here's one more. Can you give us one simple example of automating the process of training to chatbot to additional training support, automating the workflow from storyline, for example? Yeah, so I think one simple example would be someone goes through an e-learning course, and at the end of the e-learning course, you put up a QR code, just like you're seeing on the screen, inviting people to interact with the chatbot. Or it could be a link if they're on their desktop that goes into Teams. And when I click on the link and I go into Teams or SMS or whatever, let's just use Teams for now. That first chatbot message says, hey, congratulations on completing course 101 or whatever I just finished, because it's linking from that storyline course that you built. And now I can exit the LMS and that chatbot can continue to follow up with me with the content of that course. And I think that's just a really elegant and wonderful use case. And so hopefully that helps Charlotte with a simple example. And you can program that chatbot. Not only, we talked only about nudges today, but you can program that chatbot to be performance support so that the chatbot could say at any time, if you're interested, or if you need some help on this content, just text menu or ask a question. And you can program the chatbot to be able to answer common questions about that course content. All right, well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining. I appreciate your support and interest in learning about this. Good luck with all your chatbot ideas and chatbot projects. Let us know how we can help. Hope everyone has a wonderful day. And those of you that are in Hurricane Ian's path, we wish for safety for all of you. So thank you very much, and we'll see you soon.